morning. I'm Chip with the Gridiron Fantasy Football Podcast. Today is Saturday, September 26th, and I'm bringing you all the updated injury information going into Week 3. Week 3 has been a crazy week with injury. A lot of big names out for the rest of the season. A lot of guys are going to be out for quite some time, and also guys that may not play in Week 3. So I want to provide you all the information and all the up-to-date information on those injuries. So let's start off with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, as we know, is out for the rest of the season. He tore his ACL. It looks like he will be having surgery in about 2 to 4 weeks, which is the normal timeline for this because usually they wait for the swelling to go down before they perform surgery. So with that being the case, there has been some reports out there that it just wasn't the ACL. It looks like he had torn some of his meniscus and his MCL, which is what we call the unholy triad, which is those three structures being injured within an injury based on like a contact injury. So with that being the case, his recovery may be a little longer, but he still should be ready for week 1 of next year. He's going to be able to do training camp. He's a freak athlete, and I have no reason to believe that he won't be able to recover as quickly as possible. He's going to be out for 9 to 12 months, so he has time. There's no need to rush anything. He's not going to miss next year unless there's some crazy setback that he's going to have. But based on the ACL reconstruction, it'll be interesting to see what kind of graft he does, because generally you can use your own body tissue or you can get a cadaver graft. I generally would like people to get the cadaver graft because it doesn't take away from your own body. So usually when you do have an ACL reconstruction, they'll take either your patella tendon, they'll take a quad tendon, or they'll take a hamstring tendon. And when you take things out of your own body to make a graft, that generally will take a little bit longer to heal. And then generally there's some limitations with that, not from a performance standpoint, but long term. So it'd be nice to be able to see him hopefully get a cadaver graft, but obviously that's the surgeon's prerogative of what he wants to do. Next, let's go on to Christian McCaffrey. We all know Christian McCaffrey's gonna be out 4 to 6 weeks due to a high ankle sprain he suffered last week against the Bucks. If you're not familiar with a high ankle sprain is really called a systemotic injury. There is a ligament, the syndesmosis ligament, which is between the fibula and the tibia, and he tore that. So with that being the case, that takes a lot of time to heal. Recovery-wise, like I said, based on the grades, there's 3 different grades. There's grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. It looks like obviously he had a little more severity of an injury, so he will be out for quite some time. But I'm definitely interested on what takes place in his recovery and his rehab, because we know about Tua. So Tua played for Alabama, and Tua had a surgery called a syndesmosis tightrope surgery, which means that they pretty much go in and they put a kind of much like a quote unquote like a fishing line between the 2 bones to help put it together. Hopefully it heals a little bit quicker. So with that being the case, I'm always curious on when these guys have a high ankle sprain, if they ever have surgery, because we all know that Tua did. He had it done a couple times already when he was playing for Alabama, and it's a very interesting surgery. And for me, I think that this will give him the quickest recovery, but I have no idea exactly what his doctors are telling him on what surgery he's going to have, or if he's had anything, if he's just going to let things recover on its own. But generally, that is an option if that was being considered. But just an interesting little nugget there, just because of the fact that I've seen these surgeries being performed on athletes, and Tua's the biggest name that was recently that had it. So very interesting to kind of see how long it takes for Christian McCaffrey to come back. We saw Saquon Barkley come back pretty quickly from this injury last year. We saw Alvin Kamara come back, but both had said that they were never playing at 100% when they came back from injury. So with Christian McCaffrey being the franchise player there, I hope that they just give him enough time to recover and rest before they take him off of the IR spot and then bring him back into the active roster. So definitely be interesting to see. And then Denver Broncos wide receiver Courtland Sutton, he's out for the rest of the season with the ACL injury. So he tore his ACL last week as well. So a lot of big names that are being out for the season due to injury. And then going to some of the guys that could affect your week 3 lineups. Right now it looks like Darren Waller is questionable for week 3. He suffered a knee injury during the Monday Night Football game against the Saints. So he has been practicing on a limited basis. So he could be a game time decision. He should be able to play on Sunday, but you still want to pay attention to all the reports that come out. And the same for Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs injured his hip on Monday Night Football. He did practice on Friday, which is a good indication, but it was limited. So with that being the case, same thing. Make sure that you have a pivot. So if you're unable to get anybody on the waiver wire this week, hopefully you're able to grab Devontae Booker or Jalen Richard if you have to replace somebody in that same game. So, and you also too, you may have Sony Michel that's out there too, because James White's not playing this game. So if Sony Michel's out there, then I would grab Michel as well, just in case, so you have something to pivot to. And then another Raiders wide receiver, Henry Ruggs. He's going to be out for this game. He's going to be inactive. He's dealing with a knee and a hamstring injury, so he's going to be out for week 3. He's probably not a guy that you have to play because, you know, he's a guy that hasn't really done a lot in fantasy right now. So unless you're in deeper leagues and you need someone to play in your flex, Henry Ruggs, he's not going to be active on Sunday. And then going to the Chiefs wide receiver Sammy Watkins, he's in the concussion protocol. He looks like he's not going to play. He did practice on a limited basis on Saturday. However, you know, we saw this last week with Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin did get some limited sessions in for practice last week, but he was doubtful and never played on Sunday. So I think this is going to be the same case. It does benefit that the Chiefs have a game on Monday night, but if I have Sammy Watkins and I need to pivot somewhere else, I'm going to, because he's a guy that I'm not going to trust, especially having a Monday night game. I'd rather him blow up on my bench than, you know, him not play, and then I have no one to pivot to and I get 0 points. So out in Denver, it looks like Jerry Jeudy could be a game time decision on Sunday as well. He's dealing with the rib injury, so there's a likelihood that he could be out. So there's really not any more options to really choose from in Denver that you would play. I mean, you do have Tim Patrick there, so he could be a guy that you could pivot to if you definitely need someone in deeper leagues. But it looks like this Broncos wide receiving group is going to be completely decimated this week if Jeudy can't play. And then going on to New Orleans Saints, we know Michael Thomas, he's not playing this week. He's out again for week 3 due to a high ankle sprain, so he will not be playing. And then Rams running back Cam Akers, he's out for week 3. He's still dealing with his rib injury, so he should miss probably 1 or 2 more weeks based on that. And then hopefully we got in Detroit, we got Kenny Golladay. He's still dealing with a hamstring injury. He did get in limited practice sessions throughout the week. He could play again this week, however, or he could be playing for the first time this week, but I'm being cautious with this. I'm going to grab Marvin Jones, and if Kenny Golladay does happen to be active, have low expectations because we don't know if he's going to be on a snap count or whatnot. So go ahead and, you know, make some decisions for like a different plan just in case Golladay is playing. I would definitely pivot to someone else if you can, but it doesn't look like Kenny Golladay is 100% healthy yet, so he could be inactive for week 3. And then going on to Atlanta, we do have Julio Jones. He's been questionable for week 3. He did not practice at all this week, and generally that's not a good sign for what happens on Sunday. Generally you want to see some type of limited practice or some full participation to some sorts in the practice reports throughout the week, but he has not practiced at all. So my guess is that he is not going to play on Sunday. But if he does, it's the same thing as Kenny Golladay. He's going to be a boom bust type of guy because he's not the same guy. We've seen him this year so far. He has not done what we are accustomed to when it comes to Julio Jones' performances. So I would still be very cautious to play him just because we know he's dealing with an injury. With that, A.J. Brown's out again with a bone bruise to his knee. He's been ruled out for week 3. So that means that if you're needed to pivot to somebody, there is going to be Corey Davis or Adam Humphries is a guy that could be a pivot just in case if you need the roster spot and someone to plug in and play. It's just one of those things where this is part of fantasy football and guys get injured. So if you're able to pick up Corey Davis or Adam Humphries, it might be a good pivot. And then going into the Sunday Night Football game, you got the Green Bay Packers and Devontae Adams. It looks like he's doubtful for Sunday night. And this is another interesting way to kind of handle your fantasy roster, because when you have Sunday Night Football games, you want that guy to play, but then if he doesn't, you have to make sure you're able to pivot to somebody. And the options you have for that game, if you wait for that game, is that you have Marquez Valdes-Scantling, if he's available on waiver wire. Allen Lazard is going to be there on the waiver wire. But the problem is with those two is that they're going against 2 good corners. So Marcus Lattimore and you got Janoris Jenkins. That's tough matchups. So even if Adams is out, be very cautious of what you should expect from Allen Lazard and MVS, because those are just tough matchups. So if you have to play him, you have to if you have no choices. But those were the two guys I would pivot to in that game if you need to. And then on the other side of the ball, there is Emmanuel Sanders. I know he has not had a good season so far, but if you're in a pinch, it might be a guy that you want to grab. And then Traquan Smith is another guy. If I have to have a guy on the Saints right now, Traquan Smith is a guy I'm grabbing. He's probably going to be available in your league, but depends on how savvy your league is. So those are guys that you could choose to pivot to if you need to in that Sunday Night Football matchup. And then lastly, we have George Kittle. George Kittle's not playing, so he's been already ruled out for week 3. So with that being the case, if you're able to pick up Jordan Reed's a guy that you could play. He had a good game last week. He had 2 touchdowns. The difference is Jimmy G is not playing. You have Nick Mullins taking over. So if you definitely need a tight end, Jordan Reed's a guy that you can go to. And the Giants are not very good on guarding the tight end anyway, so it could be another good game for Jordan Reed. So those are all the injuries for week 3. I hope I was able to provide you with some names that you can pivot to just in case you own some of these guys on your roster. I know it's a crazy time when we got a bunch of guys that are getting injured so quickly in the season. I mean, a lot of fantasy rosters are being decimated because of injury, but it's how you respond. So go ahead and try to pick up some of those names if they're available on your waiver wire. But I hope I was able to provide that information for you. And then, please support the podcast and the YouTube channel. Please hit subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss another episode. And if you have any questions about your starts and sits or any type of fantasy football questions at all, I leave my email down in the description. It's chip@gridironfantasyfootball.com. So I try to answer all the emails I can, and I'll be answering right up to kickoff tomorrow. So that being the case, thank you so much for listening today. And if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter at the Gridiron Pod, and on Instagram at Gridiron Fantasy Football. So, that's it for today. Good luck in your week 3 matchups. I hope you get a W. And then, I will be on Monday's podcast. I'll be reacting to all of the week 3 matchups plus my fantasy studs of the week. So good luck this week and take care.